we decided to share our impressions of work we continue to develop, work on, which is called Impossibilities of DDMMYYYY. It is a piece that came about, the idea for the piece came about in 2018. We met at a concert, coincidentally sat next to each other. Miika asked me, what am I doing? And I said, oh, well, I'm sort of in this temporality of the impossible, which works with pieces that are super, well, let's say like in a complexity range of things, and how do they become possible, and then to practice, and then the light went off, and I think that there was like a light bulb when Miika's head was like, but what if you can't practice? And so the idea behind this piece, and I mean, the exploring the piece and this idea had brought us to understand many things about it we won't have time to talk about today. But one thing that we can just say is that, and related to our title of the presentation, is that this time for preparation is also that the performance itself is performing the act of playing the violin or the act of composing. And the baseline is that whatever happened, well, like when I performed the piece, I first time discovered it on the moment of the performance, and together with the audience. So I don't know what's happening before.
Which also means that I have to compose it again for every performance and every general rehearsal. So when I say that when we wrote that there are 4 premieres, that this is the 4th premiere, it really is the case.
However, since there are rehearsals, that means that you have composed more than
I have composed this quite often. There is a process. And so this is the structure of today. We will first hear the first half of the premiere, then we will explain a little bit, then we hear the second half of the premiere, and then we will have time for talk, let's hope. Just to give a little bit of a context, this is every performance is different, but so far they have always been growing, getting more complex and bigger, a bit longer, I feel. And also they have been, for the last version in Zagreb, there were 2 huge screens which created very, we find interesting spatial movement. As you can see, there are no screens. We are doing it this way. So I had to find some new tricks. We will see how they work. And also it's obviously a lot shorter than usual. And for today only, for your eyes only, there is a special treat, because part of this will be also part of that. So we will hear something twice, and you can then decide yourself if it was different, better, worse. So the part of it will not be for the first time, because Dan had already premiered. So a little bit about us very shortly. I'm Miika Hyytiäinen, composer of experimental music theatre, which will you will notice that I have problems staying in one discipline. My study has been about singer-composer communication, but more in general about how composers and performers communicate. All this, by the way, if you want to find our web pages, you can just Google Pretzi and Miika. You will find all my Pretzi presentations. This is the last one, so all the links are there.
And I do also a lot of things. I'm a curious human. So I like to use the term of rancière interdisciplinary art. I like interdisciplinary as a cross-discipline, but interdiscipline. I play violin. I make stuff for violin. I make stuff for other people. I make stuff that sounds without anyone playing. So that's why kind of interdisciplinary and curious human fit together. And I have done my PhD at University of Huddersfield, and you can look more at my website. And so just shortly about this temporality of the impossible, where this idea which brought to this idea, but then it brought too much into the idea. It was a research which was became my doctoral research. It was investigation is what is what makes a piece impossible, and these treated works of, for example, Fremantle, just to give like an idea, Fremantle of John Cage, Music of Furnico by Aaron Cassidy, by Dario Puccino. So it's these kind of pieces, Evan Johnson.
But also early music.
And yes. Well, I mean, there was a lot of things that fed into it, but well, this anyway. What impossible? How impossible is impossible? When impossible becomes possible, and not to go too much into that. There is also a website for this, so you can check more in detail there. We are short on time. Next slide.
So,
next slide.
Here we go.
Everybody should experimenting that in my way. Playing size a bit like the Grand Prix Formula 1. You know, your old turns and curves and even them. Not going to be correct though, it's got strings. So I'll do my best. I just got the results of my IQ test. Good news, it's negative. There is two eights are walking down the street. No, two zeros are walking down the street, and one is.
So I will give you a second to breathe. So as you can see, I was experimenting with the spatial aspect, and I took some of the boring parts away because they were getting too easy. So there's a continuous fluctus, and kind of like we are running behind each other. For the last version, I had to. We had a costume change, and I actually think that costume change is needed for this one too. So you can put that on, and maybe use my identity as a mute for the violin piece. We are continuously kind of like following each other and trying to find new and interesting things, and it's a play of finding things that you think that are not possible. And as you could hear in the beginning, there are totally new music happening from the old music and combinations that could only exist in the moment. But I will now give the stage to you.
So the piece gives this first external shock where this is, and it seems quite chaotic, but in reality it is a composed chaos in a way, because it's supposed to be chaotic. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable. It's supposed to make you feel comfortable in being uncomfortable, so that you go out of this comfort zone. It's like bringing you to that part. So that's like to find out how do you navigate in this space. So this is like discovering just the score, the same place. There is so many parameters of, you know, that nightmare where you wake up and like when you are playing a piece that you don't know, or you're naked on stage. That changes. And then there is like the internal aspects where you're like simultaneously you have to internally internalize what's happening. So there is this aspect of the score. So the screen is being the score, but it's being seen and analyzed also by the audience. So you have that in your mind, and so you are simultaneously inhabiting the score, but you have to discover what's happening in it. But you know, when you perform, you're living the score. You know, so now you have this discovered portion of your work which is happening on stage, but you simultaneously have to now live it and then present it. So it kind of brings out this performance brain and practice brain, which every performer has, that they have to work simultaneously and not, you know, kind of work out each other. And then there is acceptance that developing this dual brain that has to that was a process for myself to be okay with that, and to also step away. There was a lot of things about movement memory that came out from accepting that I also have to rely on my body, and that things can go out of hand, but that, you know, there is trust to the body, and then to acceptance the inevitability of failure, which I think was on micro level and on macro level. Like many things can just from observing fail, but like you internally of realizations can come to later than you want them. But then to use this failure as a tool, and failure. There was a question on one of the panels: what does it mean to succeed? And then here, failure as succeeding, because it's not about you have to do it perfectly. It's about how far can you push yourself to do it. So
yeah.
Yes.
And this question of failing and creating the whole artistic process of failure and failing will be our next step. Well, this will be just a side note on that.
So you could see in there was a picture of one of the. You see that this screen is at the moment white, but this kind of brings out the size of the screen also. As here now I have a frame and it's graspable, but it becomes significantly more challenging when you have these kind of two humongous screens.
And I love the spatiality of two screens, because when I work in a transdisciplinary way, sometimes it is that I'm like writing a choreography, but it's even more interesting when the movement comes automatically of playing and of looking at the score, and that's the most beautiful thing when the things actually transform into each other. So in this case, the screens, the huge screens that you imagine in front of your eyes, they have many functions. It's a staging. It's a music theater staging for me practically, and at the same time, it's the evolving score that I try to find funny things. Now I feel it has too little colors. I want more colors, which is all in the like in transdisciplinary experimental music theater, or new discipline, as Jennifer Walsh calls it. which allows the first time encounter, which is very important for this piece, and movement memory, as Dana mentioned. It eliminates the rehearsal time, it eliminates it, but also like allows the new temporality to exist. And I'm in video, I'm giving the temporality. The metronome is by me, which is not very nice, but that's life. I'm very. We have been very intrigued by the how audiences react very differently, but always very actively. Yes. The audience is really breathing and feeling the performance. And as a composer, I often like to show the score, but there needs to be a reason, and clearly here is the case.
And I think that the first time when we did in Paris, there was one element which was a photograph I had to reenact, and then I threw my violin and caught it in the air and jumped.
That was not my intention. That was her interpretation of the photo.
It was later, but the thing was that because I'm looking at the screen and there's so many things to do, but hearing the audience do like, I realized, oh, they're in it with me, you know. So it was such an amazing thing, which kind of I was like, okay, like they're supporting. It's not like so it was it's great to hear that response from the audience being so active in it.
And I also feel that it has been the case with different audiences. So with musicians, with all kinds of. We had an amazing. This one girl in one of the performances was just like dancing and moving.
There was a girl who stood up and came more close to the stage and started imitating what I was doing, which we found beautiful after. I mean, I saw it only after on a recording because she was behind my back, but I found it absolutely amazing.
She was busy doing something else.
Yeah,
and all this challenges the norms of piece. As I said, I like to show the making of, or the sausage factory of how all this is done, and now all this is done in front of your eyes. So it challenges the norm of someone practicing and having more information than the audience has. Well, not all the information, but a lot of the information that the performer has. And the question of failing comes on so many levels, especially we will try to get to the act of playing violin and the act of composing, or performing the act of playing violin and performing the act of composing. When you have time to practice, there is this kind of a safety net that is also a role. You're performing this, but also as a composer, I have time to make sure that all the Bach chords are right and that the timing is correct. And I've also made a challenge for myself, which is also a practical thing, that I composed this very late. You might see some video that was shot maybe not so long time ago. So it's kind of like a process that's evolving in time. We might not go so much into details. So there are different historical layers.
Sort of conclusion before the actual conclusion, where these are all different parameters we just now mentioned, but things that we discovered through the piece, through developing piece, through performing piece, through everything that's around this, and how for the performer, how it challenges which I mentioned, acceptance and emotional depth, which engages you in a different way, where the safety net of being prepared and then performing, you don't have it, so you completely have to change your performance mentality. And how do you do this? But simultaneously, there is an interesting aspect how much it actually feeds in your performative persona as a general and actor. So it's quite an embracing vulnerability. This exposedness to the audience and vulnerability, which is sometimes it's always present when you're having any kind of public presentation, but oftentimes it's trying to be hidden because we want to be perfect. We want to present as it's, there is no need for preparation, or even if there is, it should seem easy. I remember this from when I was a child. It should seem easy when you're performing it. But here you're completely vulnerable because the struggle is going to be seen and felt. So it's, yes.
Let's see more struggle.
there is a cactus idu crosspoint cactus. Another joke. What kind of bees make milk instead of honey?
It's almost end of the conference, so time for some beautiful memories. What play us something that you heard on Thursday? And now, without cutting, go directly to something that you heard on Friday. And while you are playing that, please explain us what Mimi told us about me being naughty or nice, and how you answered to that.
Mimi was talking about
And then please keep on explaining if you can, and play what we heard in Salome, and then explain what you saw on Saturday. And then when you have done that, please play what you played in the beginning of Impossibilities. Thank you. Any questions? Did you find inner peace?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, I feel so
I'm
naked
dressed.
without the jacket. So. Yeah.
Hey, Miika, thanks for a lovely presentations. I really felt very empathetic throughout the performance. Two questions for you. How do you prepare mentally yourself before this kind of a performance? And you mentioned that you have already had 4 premieres. Or how many? Have there been some premiere where the failure has been exceptionally successful?
I mean, I feel the failure is exceptionally successful in all of them.
Yeah.
Because they work, but they also yes, I think. How do I? Yes, I don't know like what would be exceptionally successful in failure. I think that the process of it makes it successful because
Yeah.
we can really feel the piece as it's. I hope that that the audience can feel the piece as what is intended to be, which means that since the piece is about failure in a
Mhm.
way than it is successful.
It is, absolutely.
And about the mental preparation, I think that each performance has taught me more about how to prepare myself for it. I think that I was particularly stressed for the first one because I never know. I mean, there is ideas of I know what kind of things might happen. Also, piece-wise of these experts that can appear, but we have went through a lot of existing pieces, like what are very difficult pieces for violin.
Yeah.
And so, but it is not possible that I can for each performance practice each one of them entirely. Also because it makes no sense because the excerpts are so short, the way that they're connected one after another, the excerpts become a different musical material within that context. And so I think that my mental preparation was just to be accepting, just to this acceptance, to be calm and ready to have fun.
Yeah.
And then I told to Miika today that I realized that I get jittery and excited as I'm a child.
Great.
But the first performance, I still had the questions, which was in 2019. I think I also was preoccupied with questions of like, how is it going to be accepted by the audience? Is it going to be understood? Am I going to be a bad performer? Am I going to be judged as like, oh, she said so bad, it just doesn't sound good. So these are like those questions that you have when you're a child,
Right.
And
so it's yes.
in a way, it's the same thing for me when I explain about this piece, especially to performers. They're like, okay, this sounds like you're a horrible person and horrible human being. And it's funny because like I literally wrote my doctoral thesis about how to communicate and compose very specifically for voice. But always when I'm here, when I see Dejana perform it and when I experience the audience, I feel that like it's a very shared experience for me too. It's
But I think also because you don't like, I think like this, like when you compose a piece where you write out everything in it before, you can still build things that can happen, obviously. But here there is so much fragility for yourself as well, whether something will work and how am I going to react, or am I going to crash completely, or have
or crush your violin, which would not have been nice.
Or, or have a
One more. Yeah, thank you. I mean, really wonderful piece and presentation. I mean, you don't say expressly, but do you identify with sort of queer aesthetics of failure, and also a kind of, this is very much about being present in now. It's a kind of, we're not concerned with creating a sort of permanent work because it only exists in the present moment, which seems to kind of exhibit a kind of queer temporality as well. Are those things that you're engaged with?
Yes, I mean, not at first. In 2019, not really that much, to be honest. It wasn't, I mean, I worked with temporality a lot and about memories and those kind of things, and making memories also visual in different ways. But to be honest, the queer failure is something, or failing in a queer context is something we have been studying a lot lately for the bigger piece about failing, and that is definitely something that I see myself in, and this is one of those ways to question what performance is and why and how it could be done, and one of the references actually is also there. So yes, for sure, but not in the beginning. There has been a lot of
to be discovered through, and each new thing gives us a new thing that kind of feeds into the next version, or in this case even something a little bit expanded version of
yes.
Thank you.
Very quick. You gave us the opportunity to join in the failure by doing exhale and inhale. Do you ever involve the audience in other kinds of failure?
No, and I think it was in the first, the meditation has always, or like breathing technique has always been there, usually in the middle, so you go even more extreme afterwards. But in the first round, I didn't say anything about the audience, and
And the audience joined.
The audience
Those were like
totally
the
joined
two.
in.
Those were the. Was it that in the first one the meditation part was after the violin? So these were like the two things: the gasp from the, and then when they were breathing with me, and that was like, oh, there is definitely potential for like there is like the audience has a special.
Yeah, yeah. And I even feel that maybe it doesn't need to be, maybe I don't need to write that audience may join in because like you do or
We
you
had
don't.
a girl who
Yeah.
joined in.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
you
you.
very much.